Our trade deadline coverage here on the fourth period brought to you by Betway. That's David Pagnotta. I'm Irfaan Gaffar. David, let's get right to it. You guys had a very good chat with Buffalo Sabres GM Kevin Adams over the weekend where he basically suggested that, the Sabres were willing to take on a contract from another player for another team to help them out. Obviously, them and Seattle are now the two teams that publicly admitted it. What do you think their approach is come deadline?
Yeah, or if you could add Arizona to that mix as well, and we'll get into them in a second. But with Buffalo's perspective, Kevin Adams told us on the Hot Stove on SiriusXM NHL Network Radio on Saturday that he is completely willing. He's informed all the teams. The league knows that if you are trying to move out a contract, Buffalo is willing to take it on. And not just on an expiring deal, by the way. If there's a contract that extends into next season and perhaps beyond, Buffalo is willing to explore that option. Obviously, it has to make sense,
Yeah.
and they have to be incentivized to do it. But the Buffalo Sabres are a team. They've made it known to the rest of the league that if you need a conduit, if you need that third party to take on a contract, be it an expiring deal or anything along those lines, give them a call. They're open for business. Now, with the Coyotes, we had an interview with Bill Armstrong, their GM, over the weekend. Anthony DeMarco writing that one. And Armstrong, another player in that market as well, has informed teams that if you are looking to take on or to move out contracts, they're willing to take it on. So you've got Arizona, you've got Buffalo, you've got Seattle, as you mentioned. There are a lot of options out there, and there are a few more teams, I would imagine, that would explore that as well. Suddenly, cap space is the biggest commodity.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that because we're talking about teams taking on contracts to try and get to the floor and all these things. But when you look at a team that I'm going to talk about right now, and that's all eyes on Sunrise and those Florida Panthers, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they're a good hockey team. I think that they're a team right now that they'd be looking to add, and we obviously know the names and the players that are out there. But what do you think is their biggest need?
Well, they're going all in, Irf. The Florida Panthers are one of the teams that feel like they are a piece or two away. And you look at their roster and you look at everything that's there. They could add a top four defenseman, and they've been in on some of the top guys that are out there, Klingberg and Sherratt, Mark Giordano, and others. But also, we're hearing all the talk about Claude Giroux, and it's valid. The Philadelphia Flyers and Florida Panthers have had preliminary discussions as to what it may look like to try to make something work. I think that will pick up over these next 2 weeks. And the Florida Panthers have made it known that they would like to make some type of splash. If they can improve their chances even further, they'd like to do it. So, look, obviously, you got to make the right deal and everything has to make sense. And the money is going to play a factor. And maybe they use one of those teams we mentioned earlier as a third party. But the Florida Panthers are definitely going to be a team to watch over these next 2 weeks as we get closer to the deadline. If they make a big impact move and big impact addition, yeah, don't be surprised.
Yeah, it's funny we talk about teams trading contracts and trying to add players, but this is also the time where some teams are looking to extend certain players, and that brings me to the San Jose Sharks. And I know that Tomas Hertl was my pick as to one of the guys that I felt that might get traded this season. What's the latest going on with Tomas Hertl and the San Jose Sharks?
Well, they'd like to keep him. They'd like to keep him long term, and they've made those expressions known. They're going back and forth trying to see if they can come to terms on a contract extension. But if they don't, and we're 2 weeks away from the deadline, he jumps to the top of the chart for a lot of teams. I'm looking at the New York Rangers as one of them. There are a few other teams that definitely have expressed interest. The interesting thing about Hertl's contract currently, he only has a 3-team trade list. So if he's willing to expand on that, and I would imagine if they can't reach a contract that he probably will, that's going to be another element as part of these discussions with the San Jose Sharks and some of the other teams that are out there as to whether or not he's willing to accept a move other than those 3 teams. So definitely something to keep tabs on, but San Jose's still in the mold right now of trying to get him signed. We should know, I would imagine, midweek if that is close. If not, expect the trade talks to pick up.
Awesome, David. Thank you so much for this. For more analysis, interviews, and opinions, head on over to thefourthperiod.com.